I'm going to start this one off with a question for all of you. Have you seen these before? A few weeks ago when I was doing my tie-dye experiment, I of course had to purchase the dye, and when I went to do that, I was on the craft website and I was there specifically to get the tie-dye kit. I wasn't going to look at the yarn because I don't need any currently, and why risk temptation? So anyway, I went and looked at the yarn, and as I was going through the listings, I stumbled across these. What are you? Because obviously I've seen amigurumi kits before, but I have never seen an amigurumi color wheel. And I was very intrigued indeed. And it just so happened that they were on sale, half price. So I got some. I caved and I bought some yarn. In my defense, I don't really have a defense, I just wanted to try it. But my lack of impulse control aside, I do think this could be a cool project to do together, and I'm really interested to see how this works. Because when I saw them on the website, my assumption was that you would sort of crochet, start at the end and crochet the amigurumi in a specific order in order to make use of the color wheel. But now that I have them before me, I'm not quite sure that's the case. So first things first, we do want to get set up here. So let me get organized. And then I'm going to make sure that I crochet this project exactly as it says to on the label, because that will give me the best chance of success. So first of all, yoink, we're going to, I did it again. Lee, stop leaving your scissors over there. Yoink. I need to get 2 pairs. I need 2 pairs of scissors. Okay, let's cut this. Looking at the yarn as it is wound and then comparing that to the picture of the amigurumi project on the label, I don't think my first assumption is correct. I thought you would perhaps start, like say at the head, they seem to be the same color, and then crochet your way down, and then you'd have to swap to the grey and then the dark pink. But given the order the yarn is in the cake here, I'm not sure that's where they're going with this. Yes, my assumption might have been wildly wrong, but that's why you don't assume, you read the label. So let's see what, okay. Apparently this project requires a 2.25mm hook. Oh well, that's it, project cancelled. I'm not using a hook that small. Kidding, of course, but this project was going to take a little while anyway, because again, I've got to break up my crochet in segments, but this is going to make it drag on a little bit longer, because the smaller hook sizes and the really large hook sizes, they tend to hurt me more than say the 4 to 6mm hooks, but that's okay. We'll just have to work on it for a bit longer than I planned. Now that we've established the hook size, let's see what else. We've got requirements. Yep, that's fine. Tension is not important for this project. Agree to disagree. I think tension is kind of important in amigurumi. Perhaps not the most important thing, but it is important. Why am I sitting here arguing with a yarn label? Moving on. Special note. Before starting, separate the different colours. To do this, carefully push out the centre colour and ease it out intact. Find the point where the colour changes and cut the yarn. Repeat this process for the remaining colours until you have 4 separate colours. Yeah, this is definitely not what I thought it was going to be. I sort of get where they're going with this kit, but to me it sort of defeats the purpose having to separate the yarn yourself. I mean, you may as well just buy different skeins of yarn. It's essentially the same thing, except you have smaller quantities here, which maybe that's what people are going for, but to be honest, it's kind of disappointing. I was hoping it would be like an all-in-one kind of thing, but no. But that is what the label says we must do, so we shall do it. Where's my scissors? Right there. So you've got to push out the centre colour, which in this case is the grey. It wasn't difficult to do, but I do think it's unnecessarily finicky. Much easier to just buy a skein of yarn. You don't have to worry about this. So let's jump into the pattern. We'll see how that holds up. All right, so we're going to start with the first piece, which is the head and body. Worked as one piece from top of the head to base in continuous spirals, 2.5mm hook, and color 1. Work 6 double crochet into magic ring. I'm guessing this is in UK terms because if I look at the front, they are definitely what I would call single crochet. But if I'm remembering correctly, the equivalent in the UK terminology is double crochet. So I'm going to have to remember as I'm reading this pattern that where it says DC double crochet, I need to do an SC, a single crochet, because otherwise I'm going to end up with a very funky looking bird, I think. So they say start off with 6 double crochet, single crochet in a magic ring, but they don't call that round 1. They call round 1 6 increases. Ugh, I hate using this small hook. And this yarn, it does not feel like the best quality either. So that, in addition to the small hook size, I think is going to make for a pretty frustrating experience. But I'm going to try not to pass judgment too early. I mean, I've literally just crocheted round 1. Well, technically, according to the label, it's not even round 1. This is round 1, what I'm going to be doing now. This is so frustrating already. The fibers just keep splitting. You know when your needle goes sort of through the middle of the threads and you only pick up half of them? I find that tends to happen with like the poorer quality yarns. And it's certainly happening in this case. I think I'm going to mark these rounds off as I go because I can foresee myself buggering up because they don't count the initial 6 single crochet or double crochet in this case in a magic circle as round 1, and whereas I would. So that might, if I put this project down and then come back to it, that might throw me off a little bit. So I'm instead going to mark off the rounds as I crochet them. And then round 5, this might be the last round that I can do today. I can feel the pull in my shoulder, and that's usually my sign to stop. So round 5, last one for today. And that is round 5. Well, it would have been if I had managed to finish that stitch. Now it's round 5. Okay, I actually have a lot of thoughts on this kit so far, but I'm probably going to save them all to the end of the video just because a lot of them aren't particularly positive, and I do want to give these Amigurumi color wheels a fair shot. So I'm going to continue crocheting this, chipping away at it over the next couple of days to weeks. And yeah, I don't really know what I was going with that sentence because I don't have anything more to add. I'm just going to continue crocheting this, documenting my thoughts along the way, bringing you guys back if there's anything to update you on, but then I'll give my final thoughts and overview at the end. And now I've got to change colour. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I'm not particularly liking this challenge so far. The yarn, it really is of such poor quality. It makes crocheting with it, regardless of hook size, just incredibly frustrating. You know those cheap yarns you can get where it's literally happened now, where the fibers, they just, is that focusing? Focus please. The fibers just split, and they do that constantly. And then sometimes they will not, and it's very hard once this horrible synthetic-y stuff, once it knots, it's hard to undo them. It's just been a bit of a downer of an experience so far. Again, look, happened again. I think that's a combination of the small hook size and the yarn itself. So I'm just going to finish off this round. Another thing I've noticed reading a bit ahead in the pattern is I don't think these instructions are particularly good either, but I will save my full thoughts on that for the end of the video. For the end of the video. This challenge is messing with my brain, I think. We're going to change color. This is the one I need next. And looking at the picture at the front, because again, the instructions aren't the best, but it looks to me like the majority of the pattern is crocheted in this darker pink. There is a tail piece. I cannot see what that looks like from this picture alone, but it does make me concerned that they didn't provide more of this yarn. This yarn here seems to only be used for the head, but there is about the same of this yarn as there is the dark pink, which I need for, I'd say, at least 3/4 of the pattern. That just doesn't make sense to me. If you need more of the dark pink yarn, why not provide more of that? Why provide the same amount of this one as this one, which is used for significantly less of the pattern? I don't know. I don't know. And there we go. That is the first round of the dark pink done. Cross that off my list. And now for the rest of the body pattern, I just continue in the dark pink. This is a fairly straightforward basic pattern. I think it would be beginner friendly if it weren't for a couple of factors that I'll discuss later. But it really is just increase out, crochet down, and decrease for the body section. So yeah, simple, straightforward. There's just a couple of other things that make it kind of annoying. This bloody pattern. When I first found or saw these wheel amigurumi things, I thought to myself, what a unique and interesting idea. I'd love to try that out. Boy, was my optimism misplaced. I have become progressively more disenchanted with this whole concept as the pattern has continued, and I haven't even finished the head and body yet. But for some inexplicable reason, the decrease rounds, so the final, 5 or 6 rounds, they're all crocheted in the back loop only according to the pattern. Why? I don't know. I found that so bizarre that I actually had to double and triple check that I was reading the pattern correctly. And look, I'll hold it up. I hope it'll focus, but look, what does it say? Worked in the back loop only. So it says it right there above my nail, but all of those final decrease rounds are worked in the back loop only. And I thought, perhaps it is because you need to have the front loops exposed for sewing purposes. But nope, I read the assembly instructions and it doesn't mention anything about attaching pieces to those front loops. So I have no idea if that is a typo. I'm assuming so, because what other reason would there be for leaving the front loops of the decrease rounds exposed like that? I don't know. I do not know. The yarn itself continues to be a pain in my ass. I don't enjoy working with this yarn at all. But I've actually had a bit of an idea of how I can sort of salvage this situation. And that, well, won't be done in this video, but in a future video, what I thought I could do was sort of do my own take on this color wheel amigurumi thing. I would design my own version of this pattern and, make it beginner friendly, because I assume that's what these sort of patterns, or who these sort of patterns are tailored towards, but also arrange the yarn in the wheel as I think it's supposed to be arranged. I should have learnt my lesson by now. I can't count and talk at the same time. I'm just finishing off these final few rounds here. The instructions say to work in the back loop, but for these last, I think I'm on the third last, I'm just working them in both loops. It's a pain in the butt trying to trying to work in the back loops only with the 2.25mm hook, and I'm not about that, so I'm working in both loops. And there we go, head and body finished. I really am sort of flabbergasted. Why would you have to work in the back loops only for the decrease rounds? The first decrease round, I can understand that. That would create the corner for the bottom of the bird. But the rest, I don't know. Where's my needle? Despite not being super enthusiastic about this particular project, and to be honest, a bit disappointed that it's turned out the way that it has, I am going to persevere with this. I will crochet the remaining bird bits, and then I'm going to put this thing together and give my final thoughts overall at the end. Who knows, things may drastically improve from this point. I'm not feeling too optimistic about that, but hey, who knows, it could happen. Done. Bird head and, oh, you're looking a bit lumpy there. Didn't stuff that very well. That's probably the least of my problems with this pattern, but the head and body done. I will continue crocheting the rest of the bits, which is the beak, the wings, the feet, and I believe there's a tail as well. Yeah, tail as well. And then, I don't know, what am I going to do with you? Probably another thing I can give to my nibblings. They'll like it. I gotta be real with you guys, my motivation to finish this project has been hovering around 0. That's kind of unusual because even when I don't have the most positive experience with crochet projects, I can usually, you know, get myself to finish them off, no problems, just gotta put in a bit of hard work. Oh, but this one's been a bit of a slog. There's just so many little things that I've noticed that add up over time that just make me want to go, nah. But on the other hand, I don't want to waste all the time and effort I've put into creating this video. So we're going to power through. We're going to finish this off today. So I've just got to assemble this thing. That's all I have left to do. And then I'll give you guys my final thoughts. Boy, do I have a few things to say. Cheap. Actually, you know what? Cheap kind of describes this pattern, if I'm being honest. Look, I usually try and stay positive about these kinds of things, but I'm really struggling to come up with anything to say that falls into that category at the moment. To begin with, the pattern was in UK terms. It required a 2.5mm hook, and the written portion of the pattern was formatted in one of the very specific ways that my brain, it just struggles so much to interpret. Now you might say, Lee, those criticisms are very subjective and don't really reflect the overall quality of the pattern. And you would be 100% correct. Those things are very much personal crochet quirks of mine. I prefer US terms, I prefer larger hook sizes, and I don't like the way this pattern is written. But in addition to all the other issues I had with this kit / pattern, those, what would have otherwise been minor inconveniences, felt a bit like rubbing salt into the wound. So what were some of those other problems I had with this pattern? Well, let me tell you. First of those problems was just the yarn quality. It is incredibly poor. I would recommend anyone stay away from this, especially beginners. I think looking back on my own crochet journey, when I first began, I used the cheapest yarn I could possibly find because that's pretty much all I could afford. And looking back now, I do think it makes learning to crochet harder. The fibers just split constantly. I found myself having to backtrack a lot. I'd crochet, the fibers would split, and you know, they tangle around your hook, around your stitches, so you have to frog your work and then repeat it. I know that happens with other yarns too, but it just seemed to happen every other stitch when I was crocheting this pattern, and I have noticed that same trend in the cheaper quality yarns as well. Overall, it's just generally unpleasant to work with. It doesn't feel nice, it doesn't crochet well, and I would honestly recommend avoiding it if you possibly can. Secondly, my struggles to interpret it aside, the pattern itself was mostly fine overall, but there were definitely a few sections that made me stop and go, mate, what the hell are you doing? Parts of this pattern were just kind of bizarre for no reason that I could discern. For example, the base of the body, the final rounds, were all crocheted or supposed to be crocheted in the back loop only. I have no idea why this is. I can understand one round being crocheted in the back loop only so you can get that curve going. But why would the subsequent rounds need to be crocheted in the back loop only? Especially when, the only reason I could think to do that was to sew pieces to the exposed front loops. But you didn't have to do that in the assembly stage. So I'm sat here scratching my head why you would need to crochet the final decrease rounds in the back loop only. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. And there were just other odd choices, or at least I think they're odd choices. For example, the final round of the tail was crocheted using half double crochet. Now, don't get me wrong, half double crochet can be a really useful tool when making amigurumi for shaping purposes. I myself use half double crochet pretty frequently when designing, but when you use them in the final round of the piece, and nothing particularly interesting was done with them. They were just still staggered in the round. Even the increases were evenly separated like the single crochet before them were. And I don't know why. It adds nothing to the pattern except to make the final round of stitches just slightly taller. Another head scratch moment. I don't understand. So the pattern itself, I wouldn't say I have particularly negative feelings about it. It's more just feelings of confusion. I can't explain some of the choices, but it's a mystery that's bugging me because I want to know why those particular choices were made. They don't make sense. Where the pattern failed a little bit, however, was in the instructions. They're very sparse and not particularly clear all the time. One example that comes to mind is the colours were never specified. So in the written pattern, it says MC, then C1, colour 1, C2, colour 2, so on and so forth. But the instructions don't specify which colour is which. Now you can kind of interpret what colour they're referring to by looking at the image on the front. But this is the only image you get, and let's be honest, that's not very helpful. It's small, it's actually kind of blurry, so you have to kind of interpret that for yourself. And after giving it a bit of thought, actually, I considered that maybe the color number was determined by the order in which the colors appeared in the wheel originally. But the thing about that is I don't remember what order that was because I cut up my yarn at the start and I didn't take any notes. And if that is the case, that should definitely be included in the label somewhere. Attention, please take note of the specific order of the colours in the wheel because that is how they are referred to in the pattern. Maybe not in those specific words, but something that conveys that same information. So I don't know if that is actually the case, but that's the only thing I could really think of. And then after all the pieces were crocheted, I put them together as you saw a few minutes earlier, and I think it came together okay. Once you get over the hurdles of every bloody other thing about this kit, the bird itself, it is kind of cute. I did go ahead and crochet myself some eyes because you were supposed to embroider them on, but I didn't like how that looked, so I just, 2 rounds in a magic circle gave me some cute eyes. I almost dropped it then. I can't find it within myself to genuinely recommend these kits to anyone. It's just not worth the hassle. And that sort of brings me to my last question is, who is this for? Because when it comes to crochet or amigurumi kits in general, I can definitely see their appeal. I can see their appeal for beginners because you might not have all the tools and equipment you need, and a kit is a good way to start off because it provides, or at least it should provide, everything that you need. I can even see their appeal to more advanced crocheters because you might not be someone who, say, dabbles in amigurumi a lot, but you might want to make one for a gift or something. Therefore, purchasing a kit will get you sort of just the required amount of items that you need. You don't have to worry about having leftover yarn or anything like that you're not going to use. So I can see their appeal. With these, however, I can't say I understand it, because if you're a beginner and you purchase this, you're still going to have to go out and get yourself a hook, scissors, needle, stuffing, all the additional supplies you need. And if you're an advanced crocheter who, say, falls into the category of the example I used just before, and you don't really make amigurumi all that much, but you want to make one for a gift or something, I don't think this kit is going to help you in any way, shape or form. To begin, there's all those, like the criticisms I have. You have to contend with all of that, but you're going to have a bunch of yarn left over. Where did I put this is the yarn I had left over from this pattern. So you're going to have all of this left over, this terrible, terrible yarn. You are genuinely better off going out and buying skeins of yarn and finding yourself a free pattern on Instagram, Pinterest, wherever you get your crochet patterns from. There's plenty of places you can do that. I really don't get it. Is this just like a money-making thing? Because I've legit just sat here for the last 5 minutes trying to think why. I can't see who these would appeal to. Maybe if the quality was better, it would be a product worth the money, but in its current state, it really isn't. It really isn't. Lincraft, do better. This yarn is going to go in my scrap thing. Bag, that's the word, bag. This one, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'm considering donating it, and someone else can put themselves through this torture. But if that doesn't happen, I suppose I could separate the yarns and use that as scrap too. But I think I'd rather donate it. Let someone else deal with it. Like I said before, I try and stay positive. I don't want to be like overly negative, but I just did not enjoy this project. And that saddens me a little bit because I love to crochet. Even the projects that don't always go to plan, when I make a lot of mistakes, I still enjoy the process. But this was just not fun. I didn't derive any joy from this at all. And that disappoints me more than anything else, I think. But what won't disappoint me is this week's. And today's featured creator on the hookup is 13 Dammy I. And she says, I am 16 and I love crocheting. It was passed down from my grandma and now I have made a small business for myself out of it. I created a community on Reddit called the Crochet Community, and there I and several other people share what we make. And there is a link for the Crochet Community Reddit page down in the description. So if you'd like to join, make sure you check that out. Also down in the description is a link for I forgot what my own segment was called then. Also down in the description is a link for the hookup form if you would like to apply for yourself. Because this was a bit of a letdown, I think in a few weeks, I'm going to try and recreate this pattern or this kit, but in my own way. I'm going to put my own twist on it. So I'm going to keep this label, even though I honestly want to burn it, but I'm going to keep that, and I'm going to make a bird that's sort of roughly the same size with the same amount of pieces. But I'm going to do it my way because I have several ideas of how this could be improved and better executed, which I was going to talk about, but I think I will leave it to that future video. Yep, it's a plan. It's a plan. If you have any particular like bird you'd like to see, let me know what that is. I'm definitely partial to like parrot species just because of their beautiful colors, but let me know what you would like to see. For now, you are going to go in the pile of amigurumi over there that my nibblings know they're allowed to play with. So that's going to be your new home. And I think that's going to be it for today. So thank you very much for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoy it, share it if you think it's worth sharing, and I will see you in the next one.